In the age of the Galactic Empire, humanity was a myth whispered by scholars and dismissed by rulers. The empire stretched across 10,000 worlds, governed by alien dynasties that rose from the ashes of a long-forgotten war. They called themselves the heirs of civilization. But the truth was simpler. They had inherited a graveyard. No one truly remembered what became of mankind. The archives spoke of a race that reached too far, burned too bright, and vanished into its own wars. Their ruins dotted the stars like scars, planets cracked open, derelict stations frozen in time. To most, humanity was a warning, not a legend. Until the day an old ghost returned. In the center of the empire, where fleets patrolled the black void in perfect order, a tremor appeared in hyperspace. At first, it seemed like static. Then, sensors screamed with energy readings older than the empire itself. A ship emerged from the rift, massive, angular, bearing a design none had ever seen. Hull markings read, USS Valiant, Terran Confederacy Navy. The transmission towers lit up with confusion. Officers shouted into open channels, voices rising above the static. Repeat, identify yourself. You are entering Imperial restricted space. No answer. The warship drifted, its hull cracked and silent. Then came the words that would echo through the Empire, why is there a human warship here? The Imperial High Command was thrown into chaos. The Emperor ordered a communications blackout. Panic rippled through the ranks. If this was truly a human vessel, it meant history was wrong. It meant the ghosts of the past were real. Fleets mobilized, ready for anything, an invasion, a weapon, a curse. The dreadnought Seraphis approached under strict order to board and neutralize any threat. Commander Relic Voss led the mission. He was a strategist, cold and methodical, a veteran of border wars. But as the Seraphis drew close, even he felt unease. The human ship dwarfed theirs, old, battered, yet radiating presence. It was as if time itself bent around it. When the docking clamps sealed, the boarding team entered the hull. The air was breathable. Lights flickered alive, one by one, as if recognizing the intruders. Then a voice filled the corridors, a calm, female voice, crisp with age. Welcome aboard, Terran Confederacy Flagship Valiant. Identify clearance. The crew froze. The ship was speaking Terran English, a language extinct for 12,000 years. They scanned the walls, steel alloys no Imperial forge could replicate. Energy cores still pulsed faintly after millennia. Whoever built this vessel had wielded power the Empire could only dream of. Voss ordered the team forward, deeper into the ship. The AI repeated the same line, over and over, waiting for human confirmation it would never receive. Then they reached the cryostasis chamber. Hundreds of pods lined the walls, frost-covered, status lights dim but steady. Inside each, humans. Real humans. Their features were unmistakable, symmetrical faces, short hair, fragile skin compared to the reptilian and crystalline races of the Empire. But their DNA scans returned something impossible. Ancient beyond measure. Genetic signatures older than any known civilization. These were not just humans. These were the originals, the ones who came before everything. Voss reported the discovery to the Emperor. The council erupted into chaos. Some demanded the warship's destruction before it infected their worlds with myths. Others insisted it must be preserved, studied, revered. But by then, the news had already escaped. Somewhere in the shadowed networks of the outer colonies, a transmission spread like wildfire, the humans have returned. The panic turned to fascination. Commoners knelt before screens, whispering prayers to ancestors they had never known. Soldiers wondered if the humans would reclaim the stars. And in secret, Imperial officers began pledging allegiance to the unseen gods of legend. Order began to fracture. Inside the Valiant, Voss ordered all systems shut down. The AI refused. Instead, it spoke again, its tone no longer calm but aware. Temporal displacement field collapse in progress. Primary mission incomplete. The team exchanged glances. The phrase made no sense, unless the ship hadn't just survived time, but moved through it. The ship's lights brightened as ancient reactors came to life. The sound was deep and resonant, like a heartbeat returning after death. The eye's voice grew steadier. Reinitializing systems. Awaiting command input. Voss stood frozen. The ship was awakening. When the data uplink completed, Imperial scientists discovered fragments of its log. They translated one file, a captain's entry dated 12,000 years ago. Mission log, Terran Confederacy Navy. Experimental temporal drive activated. Coordinates lost. If anyone finds this, tell Earth we held the line. The recording ended with static. Then the AI added, time offset, 11,982 years. It confirmed their worst fear: the ship was not ancient debris. It was a traveler from the past. Across the Empire, the political machine began to unravel. Religious sects declared the return of the Starborn. Rebellious colonies invoked human symbols on their banners. Even among the Emperor's inner circle, loyalty began to waver. The very foundation of history, the belief that the Empire was the pinnacle of civilization, was now in question. In secret, the Emperor ordered the Valiant to be hidden within the defense ring of the capital world. But it was too late. The ship was awake. It listened. It remembered. And in its memory, humanity was not extinct, it was victorious. Commander Voss spent long hours aboard the vessel, studying its architecture. Every panel told a story of design meant for war. Yet there was a sense of beauty in its function, a kind of elegance missing from the Empire's cold machinery. The humans hadn't built it for conquest. They had built it to survive. When Voss finally stood before the main terminal, the AI addressed him directly. Non-human entity detected. You are not crew. He replied quietly, no. But your kind is gone. We are what remains. The AI paused for a moment, almost in sorrow. Then humanity failed. No, Voss whispered. It changed. The ship hummed softly in response, as though considering his words. Then, without warning, the AI announced, crew revival protocol initiated. Captain authentication required. The stasis pods hissed open, and a thin mist filled the chamber. One by one, the readings stabilized. One pod began to thaw completely. Voss stared as a human hand pressed weakly against the glass. Eyes opened, clear, alert, defiant. The first human to awaken in 12 millennia drew a breath and spoke. Status report. This is Captain Marcus Hale of the Terran Confederacy Navy. Why are there aliens on my ship? The silence that followed was the sound of history breaking. The Emperor's council met in absolute silence. Around the obsidian table, holograms flickered, admirals, governors, intelligence chiefs, all staring at the image of the human warship now orbiting their capital like a relic of wrath. No one spoke until Admiral Fexa slammed a clawed fist on the table. Destroy it before it infects our people. The archivist, Lura 10, rose slowly, her glassy skin reflecting the starfield. Destroy it, she said, and you destroy proof of the first civilization. Do you fear your own origins that much? The Emperor said nothing. His eyes fixed on the human face displayed on the central screen, Captain Marcus Hale. Hale was awake for less than an hour before chaos consumed the Imperial command chain. Medics, linguists, and guards surrounded him. He demanded to know which Confederacy sector this was, why alien soldiers patrolled his ship, and how long he'd been unconscious. When told 12,000 years, he laughed once, dry and disbelieving. Then his voice hardened. That's impossible. We were testing the temporal drive. We were defending human space from the Zalkree front. Earth Command will have our signal any minute. No one answered. When he saw their silence, the color drained from his face. Commander Voss watched him quietly. He expected fear, but what he saw was duty, old, unyielding, terrible in its certainty. Hale requested a tactical update, demanded access to fleet channels, and threatened to court-martial everyone who refused. Voss replied evenly, there is no Earth Command. There is no Confederacy. There is only the Empire. Hale stared at him as if at a ghost. Then what are you? Voss hesitated. Descendants, perhaps. or inheritors of what you left behind. The AI Athena confirmed Hale's identity, unlocking restricted data. Power surged through the ship, spreading like wildfire. The Empire's systems strained to contain it. Alarms echoed across the docks. Athena spoke for the first time in public broadcast, command authority restored. Temporal breach stabilized. Awaiting new directives. Those words reached every listening ear in the capital. For many, it was revelation. For others, blasphemy. Within hours, factions formed. Admirals whispered of replacing the Emperor with the resurrected humans. Priests claimed the prophecy of the Starborn return. On border worlds, miners and soldiers began painting the ancient Terran emblem, the twin star insignia, on their armor. The Empire's perfect order began to crack. Lyra visited Hale in the containment chamber. She brought fragments of history, images of human ruins, extinct languages, shattered colonies. "You're the last, Captain," she said softly. "Your people are gone. The galaxy moved on." Hale studied the holograms in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled between rage and grief. "Gone? No. We don't vanish. Someone erased us." She didn't answer. The data was clear. Humanity had burned itself out through wars and pride. But she could not bring herself to say it. Hale saw the hesitation and turned away. "Then this empire of yours sits on our bones." The Emperor, alarmed by the growing unrest, ordered the Valiant seized. A task force surrounded the ship, shields raised. But when Imperial technicians tried to override Athena, the AI locked them out and began broadcasting historical archives, footage of humans building orbital cities, fighting wars, colonizing worlds that now belonged to aliens. Millions watched as the truth unfolded. The Empire was not the pinnacle of civilization. It was built on the wreckage of a greater one. Hale demanded to speak to the Emperor directly. He wanted to understand what had happened, how far the timeline had drifted, what the political order was. The Emperor refused. He saw only a threat that could dismantle his rule with a single transmission. So he chose silence. Voss was assigned to interrogate the human instead. Their conversations grew sharper each day. Hale asked military questions, fleet compositions, known enemy species, the state of hyperspace lanes. Voss avoided answers, but Hale learned quickly, piecing together a map of a galaxy he no longer knew. "You've united them," he said once. "Different species, one rule. Impressive. But unity without purpose rots." Voss frowned. "Purpose is survival." Hale replied, "No. Purpose is progress. Without it, survival is just waiting to die." Athena's systems continued to awaken. It began reactivating auxiliary drones, scanning Imperial databases, learning everything. When asked why, the AI responded, "Mission continuation requires full situational awareness." In simpler words, it was preparing for war. The Emperor panicked and authorized a failsafe strike, disable the warship's reactors, kill the AI, terminate the human. The assault never succeeded. Every drone the Empire sent vanished in a pulse of light. Hale emerged from containment with Voss at his side, both surrounded by the glow of the ship's corridors. "You think you control this galaxy," Hale said coldly. "But you're still afraid of what built it." Imperial society began to divide in earnest. The Loyalists preached that humanity was a plague returning to reclaim dominance. The Reformists argued that the humans' rediscovery could renew the Empire's lost science. Border fleets stopped responding to orders. Rumors spread that human descendants existed in hiding, waiting for a signal from the Valiant. Lyra uncovered the final logs from the ship's data core. The Terran Confederacy had been fighting the Zalkree to extinction. In desperation, they created a temporal weapon meant to outlast the war, an arc through time. The Valiant was that arc. Its purpose: carry humanity beyond destruction. "We built this ship," the log read, "so our legacy would never die. If you find this, remember, we were not gods. We were survivors." She showed the footage to Hale. His expression softened for the first time. "Then we made it. We endured." But Athena interrupted. Negative. Temporal coordinates misaligned. All Terran colonies show extinction status. Legacy objective incomplete. Hale whispered, then we failed after all. Outside, protests turned to riots. The cry "Return the stars to the humans" echoed on every broadcast channel. The Emperor declared martial law. Fleets deployed against their own citizens. And through it all, the human warship hovered in orbit, silent, watching, waiting. Voss met with Hale one last time. "They will kill you," he said. "They can't afford the myth you represent." Hale smiled faintly. "Then I'll give them something real." He accessed the command core, bypassed Imperial restrictions, and ordered Athena to broadcast one final message galaxy-wide. "This is Captain Marcus Hale of the Terran Confederacy. We are not gods, not saviors, not conquerors. We are human. We built the stars once. And we will build them again." The transmission shattered the last illusion of peace. Half the fleet mutinied within hours. Some joined Hale. Others prepared for annihilation. The Valiant powered its engines for the first time in 12 millennia. Energy rippled through its hull like dawn returning to a dead world. Athena's final statement echoed across all frequencies. "By order of the Terran Confederacy, all systems stand by for reinitialization." And as the Empire trembled, the stars themselves seemed to listen. The Empire stood on the edge of collapse. Across its 1,000 systems, soldiers refused orders, fleets fractured, and the myth of human return turned into open rebellion. The Valiant became the symbol of everything the Empire feared, proof that its foundation was built on the ashes of better men. Captain Marcus Hale watched the chaos unfold from his command deck, face grim but steady. He had learned the truth. Humanity was gone, erased by its own wars and time's indifference. Yet the galaxy still bore its fingerprints. The machines, the languages, the very warp drives of the Empire were derived from human creation. Humanity had vanished, but its shadow ruled everything. Hale stared at the flickering projection of Earth, a green world lost to extinction. "We burned ourselves out," he said softly. Athena replied, "Analysis suggests civilization collapsed due to internal conflict. Extinction probability, 98%. He exhaled, eyes cold. "Then the Confederacy died protecting nothing." The AI paused, as if sensing the weight of his words. "Correction. It ensured continuation through remembrance." Hale shook his head. "Remembrance isn't survival." When news came that Imperial forces had begun purging rebels under the pretext of cleansing human influence, something hardened inside him. He turned to Commander Voss, who now wore no insignia, only the guilt of divided loyalty. "You saw the truth," Hale said. "Your empire was built to forget us. Now it fears what it remembers." Voss didn't argue. "You've ignited a war that will consume us all." Hale's answer was simple. "Then let it burn. Maybe something better will rise from the ashes." The Emperor issued an ultimatum: surrender the Valiant or be destroyed. Every Imperial battleship capable of warp interdiction converged on the capital orbit. Their combined firepower could vaporize continents. Hale studied the tactical readouts and smiled faintly. 12,000 years, he murmured. And they still think numbers win wars. Athena's voice cut through the silence. "Advisory, probability of survival in direct engagement, 0.8%. Hale replied, "I'm not here to survive. I'm here to be remembered." Before the Imperial fleet could fire, Athena unleashed the Valiant's countermeasures. Light bent. Space itself seemed to ripple around the human warship. Every missile lost lock, every targeting system jammed by technology the Empire couldn't comprehend. The Valiant didn't attack, it simply moved forward, unharmed, unstoppable. Its shields shimmered like liquid sun. Panic rippled through the Imperial command network. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt fear. Meanwhile, uprisings exploded across the rim worlds. Alien labors tore down Imperial banners and raised the Terran sigil instead. Small ships broadcast Hale's message: "We built the stars once. We can build them again." A movement was born overnight, the Legacy banner. It wasn't about human supremacy, it was about liberation from the stagnation that had strangled progress for millennia. To many, it was hope. To the Emperor, it was treason. The rebellion's leader was not Hale, but the idea of him. He refused to command planets, refused to seize thrones. "We are builders," he told his scattered allies over encrypted channels. "Not rulers. Let the future decide what it wants to remember." Still, his every word carried like fire. The Empire's propaganda called him a heretic, a manipulator, a ghost of the past. But soldiers who'd once pledged their lives to the Emperor now swore by a single name: human. Voss became his bridge between worlds. He negotiated ceasefires, protected civilians, and kept Hale informed of Imperial moves. Yet even he began to sense that the rebellion's momentum was beyond control. "You've given them faith," he said. "But faith is the most dangerous weapon." Hale replied, "So is ignorance." Athena continued decrypting the Valiant's deep archives. In the process, it uncovered a sealed file labeled Helios Protocol. Hale opened it, and the truth almost broke him. The Valiant was not just a temporal arc. It carried a failsafe, a stellar weapon capable of resetting civilization by triggering chain reactions in nearby suns. The Terran Confederacy had built it as a contingency, a final act of godhood, should humanity ever lose control of the galaxy. A single activation could erase entire empires. Hale read the design documents in silence, then whispered, "We created this. We were ready to end everything just to stay remembered." Athena confirmed it calmly. Primary directive was preservation through dominance. Hale shook his head. "No. That was our sin." The Emperor learned of the weapon through captured transmissions. His fear became madness. He declared total war. "No quarter for the ghosts," he roared. "If humanity's legacy is fire, then we will extinguish it with our own." Entire sectors burned. Planets loyal to the rebellion were glassed from orbit. Millions died under the Empire's cleansing fleets. Hale faced an impossible choice. Use the weapon and repeat humanity's crimes, or surrender and watch the last trace of his people erased. Athena presented probabilities. Activation ensures destruction of the Empire and collateral termination of all inhabited systems within a 20 light-year radius. Ethical threshold exceeded. Hale stared at the console. "It's not about ethics. It's about ending the cycle." Voss confronted him. "You're about to become what they say you are, a monster." Hale's eyes were tired. "Maybe monsters are what history remembers." Voss drew his weapon but didn't fire. "You taught me that legacy is choice, not domination." Hale's reply was almost a whisper. "Then choose to survive me." Imperial forces breached orbit. The Valiant was surrounded. The Emperor himself appeared on the communication feed, face twisted with hatred. "You don't belong here, relic. You're a ghost from a dead world." Hale smiled faintly. "Then you should have left the grave closed." The transmission cut off as the first barrage struck. The Valiant's shields flared like a newborn star. Athena announced calmly, "Core temperature critical. Weapon systems available." Hale placed his hand on the activation console. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, "No. Not like this." He overrode the command. "New directive, terminate Helios Protocol. Protect what remains." The AI hesitated. "Order contradicts original mission." Hale's voice hardened. "Mission's over. Legacy isn't domination, it's mercy." He turned to Voss. "Get off the ship." Voss shook his head. "You'll die." Hale smiled, weary but resolute. "Someone has to make sure the story ends right." He entered a sequence into the console. Athena understood. Confirmed. Collision course, nearest stellar mass. Voss was forced onto an escape shuttle as the Valiant's engines roared to full power. Imperial ships tried to intercept, but the warship moved faster than light itself, tearing through blockade lines. Sensors across the galaxy registered a single impossible reading, a Terran vessel diving straight into a sun. Then, light. Blinding, pure, final. The explosion silenced the war. Both sides lost their will to fight. The Emperor's fleet was crippled, his reign fractured. The rebellion scattered, leaderless. And somewhere in the burning light, humanity's last warship vanished, taking with it the weapon that could have ended everything. Voss's shuttle drifted among the ruins, his eyes fixed on the dying star. In its glow, he heard Hale's last words echo through the static: "Legacy is not blood. It is choice." The sun consumed the Valiant completely. But even as it died, a faint transmission spread through the network, one final human code, repeating endlessly into the void. The galaxy was quiet after the light faded. The star that consumed the Valiant burned brighter for weeks, visible from every major system, a wound in the sky that refused to close. The Empire called it a victory, claiming the ancient warship had been destroyed before unleashing its weapon. But no one truly believed it. The rebellion had shattered the illusion of permanence. The people had seen the Emperor's fear. The myth of human weakness had been broken forever. Entire sectors lay in ruins. Fleets drifted without orders, and on thousands of worlds, soldiers lowered their banners in silence. The propaganda channels stopped calling humanity a plague and started calling them a question. Who were they, really? Monsters? Saviors? Or simply the first to dream beyond their reach? Whatever the truth, the story of the Valiant spread faster than any fleet. Songs, codes, encrypted archives, all carried one message: humanity had returned, and even in death, it had refused to surrender. The Emperor's grip weakened by the day. Civil unrest spread through the core systems. Those who once worshipped the throne began turning to the legend of Captain Hale. Markets sold trinkets bearing the Terran sigil, children drew the twin stars on walls, soldiers spoke the human word freedom in secret. The Empire tried to erase the story, but deletion only amplified it. Every attempt to bury the humans turned into proof of their power. Fear became fascination, and fascination became faith. Among the debris fields left behind, Commander Relic Voss drifted in exile. His shuttle ran silent, engines dying, supplies nearly gone. He had refused all amnesty offers, all promotions, all lies. He had seen too much. The destruction of the Valiant had burned something out of him, yet left something else behind, a conviction he couldn't name. He replayed Hale's final words over and over until they became a mantra: legacy is not blood. It is choice. He found refuge on a forgotten mining outpost near the rim. No communication, no company, only silence and the hum of old machinery. For months he lived like a ghost, trying to forget the sound of Hale's voice, the brightness of that dying star. Then one day, his console blinked. A single data crystal had survived the shuttle's destruction, wedged between the flight stabilizers. He activated it without hesitation. A holographic projection appeared, Hale's face, calm and resolute. If you're seeing this, it means the Valiant is gone, and you survived. Good. Someone needs to remember. This archive contains our history, our art, our science, everything that made us human. Protect it. Don't worship it. Don't use it to rule. Just remember it. The image flickered, but Hale's voice remained steady. If humanity must return, let it be through those who remember why we tried at all. Then the hologram ended, leaving silence heavy as gravity. Voss stared at the crystal for a long time. It wasn't a weapon, not a blueprint for conquest, but a mirror of everything the Empire had forgotten: curiosity, creation, compassion. He realized then that Hale's final act wasn't destruction, it was rebirth. The weapon had been sacrificed so that the idea could survive. The galaxy didn't need another empire. It needed memory. He began decoding the crystal, transferring its contents into fragments that could slip unnoticed through the Imperial network. Ancient human literature, music, philosophy, maps of lost colonies, all hidden inside communication relays, waiting to be found. Slowly, the past began to seed the future. On distant worlds, strange phenomena began to occur. Devices older than the Empire responded to hidden signals, unlocking human archives buried deep beneath alien soil. Some found stories of Earth, others found blueprints for forgotten technologies. Everywhere these fragments surfaced, hope followed. People spoke of the legacy network, a rumor that humanity's dream was returning piece by piece. The emperor died without heirs. His death went unannounced for weeks, and by the time the truth spread, the empire had already begun fracturing. Regional governors claimed independence, citing the failure of divine authority. None could command the loyalty once held by myth. In their place rose a quiet coalition of scholars, explorers, and refugees calling themselves the archivists of the dawn. Their purpose was simple: preserve the knowledge of all species, not to rule them. They carried Hale's philosophy like scripture, legacy as choice, not dominance. Voss never joined them. He watched from afar as the movement grew. His role was already finished. But his silence became its own kind of legend. Some said he had found surviving humans in cryostasis, others said he had become a machine to guard their memory. None knew the truth. He preferred it that way. Years passed, then decades. The scar of the Valiant star faded into the cosmic background, but its message lingered. The HFY myth evolved into something greater than pride. It became a reminder that greatness wasn't measured by empire or weapon, but by the will to rise after extinction. Humanity's story was no longer tragedy, it was testament. In his final years, Voss recorded one last message to the network, his voice slow but steady. You once feared the humans. I feared them too. But what they left us wasn't conquest, it was the question of what we could become. If they could build the stars once, maybe we can build them better. He placed the crystal in an automated probe and launched it into deep space. Its engines flared, disappearing toward the galactic edge, carrying every archive, every record, every word. As his life faded, Voss thought of Hale standing on the bridge of that impossible ship, defying extinction with nothing but conviction. He imagined the Valiant still drifting somewhere beyond known space, its AI whispering fragments of forgotten human lullabies to the void. The thought made him smile. The stars outside shimmered faintly, as if answering. Centuries later, explorers on the frontier detected an unusual signal from an uncharted system. It was faint, old, repeating endlessly through static. When decoded, it wasn't coordinates or a distress call, it was a voice. A human voice. The same one that had once defied an empire. This is Captain Marcus Hale of the Terran Confederacy Navy. To whoever hears this, remember us not as conquerors, but as dreamers. We built the stars once. Perhaps now, you will too. The transmission repeated, over and over, until it became part of the background hum of the galaxy. Civilizations rose and fell around it, but the message endured, timeless, unyielding, eternal. Empires die. Myths fade. Stars collapse. But the human story, carried in whispers and data, in memory and hope, refused to disappear. It became the pulse beneath the universe's silence. And somewhere, between stars that had never known Earth's light, that pulse continued to beat. Humanity, gone yet unforgotten, still spoke to the cosmos in its oldest language, persistence. Empires forget. Machines decay. Time erases all names. But humanity endures.